Last week, Chapter 4's running main character Yarnaby was revealed, who we don't know much about. However, thanks to some lore documents to go along with them and a bit of digging, I think I've already solved what their purpose will be in the chapter, what the game's plot could be about, and how they might even prove the return of Huggy Wuggy finally. No, I'm not joking. So last week, through the Chapter 4 ARG, we found multiple Huggy plushes covered in yarn in real life that amounted to the reveal of the character Yarnaby, who in some also newly released documents was revealed to be some kind of an unknown toy experiment known as Experiment 1166, made from the child Quinn, a smart young boy studied by Dr. Sawyer, who after being turned to Yarnaby was notably lacking his intelligence as a child pre-operation, and was built for a specific unknown purpose we're gonna try to find in this video, but was deemed a failure due to this lack of intelligence, also sometimes even being aggressive towards certain employees. However, while we don't know as much as what Yarnaby even looks like or how their character will work in the game, we do have a couple key features that help us make some very good guesses. For one, Yarnaby was a creative, often during testing trying to take the heads off of different toys and swapping them around, something we will definitely need to remember for later in this video. And two, they were also obsessively attached to Harley Sawyer, as Harley, according to this document, intentionally locked himself in a room with Yarnaby, hoping that he would become obsessively attached to him. Something that would seemingly work, as in a future weekly checkup after Harley had left him for an unknown reason, Yarnaby fell depressed and would do nothing all day waiting for Harley to hopefully show up once again. And I really want to harp on this obsession Yarnaby had with Dr. Sawyer for a minute, because of the 5 Yarnaby documents we've gotten so far, 4 of them were about Harley Sawyer in some way, so this relationship between the two clearly matters for the game. The devs wouldn't mention it so much if it didn't have something big to do with Chapter 4. And super conveniently, one of the biggest plot twists of the recent Chapter 4 rollout happened in the Chapter 3 Story So Far video released this September, where at the end, we shockingly learned that Harley Sawyer, the one Yarnaby saw as this amazing do no wrong almost god, was actually still alive in the factory watching us through our journey the entire time. However, not as an innocent bystander, but rather our enemy, comparing us to
like lambs to the slaughter,
suggesting we were unknowingly proceeding towards our own demise, more than likely confirming Harley knows about us trying to uncover his secrets and is going to try and stop us in the upcoming chapter. But then how? Well, since we basically know for a fact Yarnaby himself is also going to make an appearance in the upcoming Chapter 4 and is knowingly crazily obsessed with Harley Sawyer, then it seems like in this next chapter Yarnaby will likely be one of the main villains, of course, but he will be chasing us down under the order of Harley, since as it's been hammered down throughout the entire ARG, Harley was Yarnaby's entire world and would more than likely do anything under his leadership, including showing off that aggression we saw before, especially to someone who displeased his leader, Dr. Sawyer. This is actually something that we saw almost one for one in Poppy's most recent Chapter 3, which saw all of these smiling critters, including Catnap, worship and work under the prototype 1006, who attacked us not by himself, but rather through the other toys in his cult. So it would make a ton of sense for Yarnaby to be working under a leader of his own. And who better than the one he valued most, and the one we conveniently just learned is still alive specifically for this chapter. This theory seems to make sense, but it still leaves me with a couple major questions. How will Yarnaby work in the chapter, and what was his purpose in the first place? We don't know anything about their appearance or what they do now, other than in the ARG box we see Yarnaby left behind piles of yarn in the 6 colors of the rainbow, possibly suggesting they could be a multicolored monster, but that's really it. However, this box here might just answer all of our questions and tell us that Yarnaby won't be working alone, as when looking back at the Huggy plush from the case, we notably had to open it up ourselves to find some secret documents, which of course is pretty cool, and at the time I just assumed, to judge from the stuffing everywhere and with the way the other toys have been treating Huggy during the other teasers, that Yarnaby was the one responsible for destroying this poor innocent Huggy. However, the more I've looked at him, the less this seems to be the case, because before opening the plush, we could see that the Huggy isn't actually destroyed and is instead stitched together with one long string of yarn, which we have to pull off to find these secrets we mentioned earlier. Yet before we even open the plush, we could see Huggy's stuffing spread all over the place, almost like like something or some event had happened to him beforehand, causing him to be damaged before he was stitched up back together with the yarn. What event could have put him in this condition, and who could have been the one to fix him up? Well, I wonder if this could be referencing Huggy being hit with the box and falling in chapter 1, and the person to fix him was none other than our friend Yarnaby. All of this seeming to be symbolism that Yarnaby not only has the ability to fix things up, but specifically might have been the one to repair Huggy after his fall in chapter 1. This makes total sense because in previous theories, I've brought up the possibility of Huggy actually returning in chapter 4, as in the riddle from these Story So Far videos, they mention felted feet, a notable feature of Huggy, and in chapter 2, after dropping down to the basement area of the factory, we find what's left of Huggy, famously showing piles of hair banged around the water treatment area that at first made people believe Huggy had crawled away through a vent or something in here, but we could see when looking down that Huggy had actually fallen even lower into somewhere deeper than the basement area, before of course in chapter 3 we go on a lift taking us down hopefully to where Huggy ended up falling. So beforehand, there's already a ton of evidence to suggest Huggy is somewhere in the depths below us, but this tied up Huggy plush seems to be even more evidence he could be returning. This even makes sense for Yarnaby's case because as we mentioned at the very beginning of this video, Yarnaby was noted as being a little weird, since his child version would start tinkering around and messing with the heads of the toys, with him even demonstrating this intelligence to Harley when in one of the call log documents he says, if you put Dolly's head from this body over here onto this one, see, he moves all better now, seeming like the child Quinn had the ability to fix toys up when necessary. And of course, who else would need fixing up other than our other good friend Huggy Wuggy? He might have a couple new body parts or a bit of yarn stitching, but I believe this is going to be one of the main twists of the game. Plus, they just have to bring Huggy back at some point. None of this nightmare TV stuff or whatever. I think the real thing is bound to show up here in some way. And so therefore, Yarnaby's main role in the factory and the reason they were created was likely meant to be to stitch and fix things up using their yarn, or possibly even help with the experiments themselves. I think this because alongside the reveal of Quinn / Yarnaby, we were also given a brand new program from Playtime Co called the Young Geniuses program, where they would send out flyers going around and looking for children from the outside world who were extremely intelligent and bring them in for a reason we don't currently know. And again, the developers wouldn't give us this document if it didn't matter for chapter 4, so we can make the assumption, judged from Quinn's intelligence before they were made into an experiment, that they were more than likely a part of this program. And while again the experiment was deemed to be a failure, it would make sense that their original intent would be to take one of their smartest children, bring them in for experimentation, and potentially even try to use them to work with the other scientists as an immortal toy who can learn for years and eventually become a master at creating all of the monsters.